Most Q videos that I've seen talk about what the supporters believe, why they shouldn't, what they do, or how ridiculous their beliefs are. But this one will be a bit different. If you want to know what a QAnon supporter, or really anyone, believes, you should ask them. I'm not going to define their positions for you. I'm not one, and I don't follow their positions. I rather want to show how we may not be so different, regardless of what we believe. It isn't the beliefs themselves we may share, but rather how we get to our beliefs, which may be very, very similar. So lean back, put on your favorite lizard face mask, and let's see not how deep this hole goes, but rather how each of us may have similar holes.
Hey all, I'm John Avlon with Reality Check, Extremist Beat Edition.
Yes, let's do a bit of a reality check. Let's first look at the term conspiracy theory and how it is commonly used. Conspiracy theory. A belief that some covert but influential organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. But commonly these days, it seems often used as a way to criticize an idea as not worthy of investigation. Personally, although I'm not aware of subscribing to any such ideas, I feel every idea is worthy of investigation. In this way, perhaps this understanding is unhelpful. How can one know if an idea is worthy of investigation prior to investigating it? I expect knuckle draggers to say something like, "It sounds too crazy." But I would point out that germs must have sounded pretty crazy, as does quantum mechanics. At any rate, there's another problem here, and that is the word theory. Please be very aware that this word has two distinct meanings. As used in science, theory could be stated as the best model for understanding a phenomenon, which has been repeated, from those who are actively studying the phenomenon. Further, finding out this was incorrect would be world-altering. The other meaning is an idea that some people have, which they think is correct. In other words, a belief held at some degree of confidence. All of this to show there is a world of difference in the word theory between the germ theory of disease and the theory that NASA never went to the moon. These are very different usages, and this must be pointed out. I would even go so far as to say using this one word for these two concepts is quite unhelpful. But as I have no power over, well, anything, let's just make sure we are aware of this distinction. Secondly, there are some conspiracy theories that have been shown to be at least in some ways true. The U.S. Treasury Department poisoned alcohol during Prohibition. The U.S. lied about treating syphilis in black men. Many Americans received a polio vaccine which had a potentially cancer-causing virus. Parts of the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which were reported, were known to be false. Military leaders had planned, but apparently didn't do, terrorist attacks in the U.S. to push citizens towards war with Cuba. The U.S. government secretly tested LSD on some of its citizens, as well as some from Canada. And others you can check out in the link provided in the description.
Now, unfortunately, you probably know about QAnon, the totally baseless and completely bonkers conspiracy theory that gained traction during the Trump years.
This is what I was getting at with the way of using this term to brush off ideas as not worthy of investigation. A question though. Which conspiracy theories should be tossed aside and which should be investigated? If many are false, but some have been shown true, where would you draw the line? Where should the line be drawn? I fall on the side of investigating all of them. If the claims are unsupported by evidence, or that evidence is insufficient for the conclusion, I would say that it is not, at least yet, a proposition which should be believed. However, I do keep an open mind about this as well. Perhaps in the future, more or better information will come forward, which will make the claim rational to believe. And here I want to make what I consider a very important point. The term conspiracy theory is of very little use, if any at all. I don't see how the distinction between a conspiracy theory and any other theory, using only the second definition of theory, that of a simple belief, makes any useful distinction. If you believe that there are unicorns flying around Jupiter, That's a belief. This belief, like all beliefs, could be true or false. If you believe that a group of politicians or whomever is trying to cover up the existence of unicorns flying around Jupiter, that is also a belief, which could be true or false. The idea of a group of people are involved, although a slightly different belief, is not qualitatively different. They're both beliefs. Let's then drop the conspiracy theory term and instead talk about beliefs. Some are rational and some are ill-founded, and many have not yet met their burden of proof. Quickly here, a burden of proof is the very basic concept that when one presents a claim, they bear the task of convincing others of that claim.
But you might not know the roots of Q, the echoes of much older conspiracy theories that help it find a fertile field in the minds of folks who keep pushing its false narratives.
Interesting. You're pointing at specific examples from the past which may have caused the beginning of the Q-Anon ideas. I would point out that those ideas, just like these Q-Anon ones, also have causes. And if also false, they are identical to the causes of all false beliefs. Poor epistemology, a lack of critical thought, and the bigoted idea that I am right and you can't change my mind. We don't need to look very far to see that every society throughout history has had those who believe insane things. We could try to point out similarities, and we would certainly have some success, but the one thing they all share is poor epistemology. That's the link.
Why has this hateful insanity persisted? Well, perhaps it's because it's such a primal way of bypassing logic and dehumanizing opponents.
First, Mr. Avlon, I would ask you to stop using the word logic, at least until you learn what it means. For your reference, sir, logic is defined as reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity. It seems as though perhaps you've learned the word logic from watching Star Trek. You are taking the conclusion and calling it illogical. But conclusions alone are neither logical nor illogical. The reasoning that gets one to the conclusion is logical or not. Yes, we can say that the conclusion is illogical, but only when we've shown the reasoning behind said conclusion is illogical. You've not done this. I would also point out that your use of the term conspiracy theory could very well be considered as dehumanizing your opponents. You're sticking them in a group you're calling hateful, insane, and completely bonkers. It is indeed quite easy to dehumanize the enemy, isn't it? We first ascribe to them negative labels, which effectively puts them out of our group and into another. This is precisely what the QAnon group does to your side. To be clear, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying you're unhelpful.
Anti-Catholic hate has a long history in the United States as well. Though now mostly forgotten, it helped fuel one of the first anti-immigrant political parties, the American Party, also known as the Know-Nothings, which gained power in the 1840s and 50s on the back of anti-Irish sentiment.
First, yes, hate is bad. But simply applying a label does not necessarily correctly define what is being done. Unless, of course, the group themselves is applying that label to themselves. I've been waiting for this one. You, Mr. Avlon, are an Afidemophobe. You are someone who fears not using faith. Someone who fears critical thinking, honest dialogue, and decent epistemology. You are someone who follows your feelings and are easily swayed by bad arguments. You attack those who make good arguments whenever they go against your pathetic notions of reality, and are forced into tired, fallacious arguments to attempt to promote your own obviously false beliefs. Afidemophobe. Whew, that actually felt pretty good. And now, an apology. I do not know you, sir. In fact, I think this is the first video of you I've ever seen. I don't think you would describe yourself that way, so perhaps it would be a better idea for me to ask you what and why you would do or say something rather than ascribe my ideas onto you. But maybe not. As this is what you seem to be doing, so maybe what is good for the goose is good for the cock? I might have messed that up. Anyway, you seem to be suggesting that those who criticize the Catholic Church or Pope are involved in anti-Catholic hate, and all those who criticize the Irish immigration of being anti-Irish. Yes, I certainly agree that there is and was, almost certainly, ignorant, hateful attitudes towards these groups by some. However, putting all of them into these categories does not allow you to investigate their claims, some of which may be valid, although many of which may be complete trash. Just some examples. The Catholic Church should perhaps be scrutinized for actions such as AIDS and condom usage in Africa, its stance on homosexuality, its stance on the role of women in society, the church, and the home, its three-card monte games with pedophilic priests. I could do this for days. Let's move on. Perhaps, in the Irish example, some were against the immigration of a large number of people whom, although were relatively well-educated, were largely very poor relative to the average American of that time, came in such numbers as to change the cultural makeup of the area, might spread disease due to living conditions, travel conditions, or the conditions of Ireland at the time, escaping religious conflicts, which may carry over to America. The important part here is not the examples, which may be correct for some or not. The important part is that you do not get to talk about the examples if you're starting with the label of anti-Catholic or anti-Irish. You already know why. They hate Catholics and the Irish. The difference between you and I, Mr. Avlon, or at least one, is that I want to hear these arguments. I want to know if they are true or not. I want to know how to fix or help them if they are indeed true. I would like the transmission of AIDS to decrease. I want all people to be treated equally and fairly. I want criminals brought to justice. I want to help the impoverished. I want to avoid cultural problems. I would love to eradicate viruses and all disease. And let's just say I'm not a big fan of war. If there are people saying these things, I want to find out if they're true or not. If they are, let's help. Referring to these as anti-Catholic or anti-Irish assumes the answer. The answer is hate. Maybe it is, and that's terrible. But maybe there are some areas where we can help. If so, wouldn't you want to? For the more perceptive of my listeners, which means all of you regular viewers, you sexy beasts, you open-minded, beautiful people, all you that are basking in the pandering. Extrapolate this as far as you like. Grouping people based on hate is not going to solve the distinction between the groups. If you want to know why, you need to ask. If indeed the answer is hate, well, I guess you are right. But if the answer is anything else, well, then you know where you should be focusing.
What's going on with Tom Hanks?
So you guys just want me to explain everything today, huh? Dude, it's all suspicion. That's suspicion.
How do you know that Tom Hanks does anything to do with this?
This may be one of the most common traps, as we have just seen, word games. Suspicion means a feeling or thought that something is possible, likely, or true. Sounds like a belief. A proposition I hold as true to some varying degree of confidence. So, this guy holds a belief in at least some of the ideas of Q-Anon. What is most striking to me is that when asked to defend his claims, he immediately creates the burden of proof fallacy. How do you not know? The interviewer has not made any claims, and therefore is not required to show anything at all. The man has committed a fallacy, though, and this is what desperately needs to be obvious to people. We need to be able to recognize these bad arguments, but we don't seem to be able to at all.
In particular, they're co-opting of a legitimate charity called Save the Children. Explain.
Hey, John, yeah, that is sort of one of the real geniuses, essentially, of these conspiracy theories, is by hijacking the name of a real charity, which is called Save the Children.
Yes, this is horrible. It is indeed becoming very common for groups to concentrate on branding, just like, as you say, Save the Children, or Antifa, Proud Boys, Bernie Sanders' slogan, not me, us. I'm loving it, and on and on. As regular viewers will be acutely aware, I often mention words. I've already done it several times in this video, in fact. There is a huge point you're missing here, though, Mr. Avlon. Let me underline it for you. Those in Antifa may actually believe they are against fascism. Those boys may in fact be proud. Bernie may care for the United States. McDonald's probably does love it, and yes, perhaps the people at the Save the Children rally in fact do believe that children are in trouble and should be saved. Again, I should point out, I do not support QAnon. I'm not really interested in their beliefs, but instead, why they have come to them. I have no interest in unicorns, flat earths, nor lizard people. I'm only interested in the reasoning that got people there. If there are people who truly think that children are in trouble, I want to hear why. And if it's true, I want to help the little angels. Right?
So your mom watches CNN?
Yes.
So if your mom watches CNN, she's probably seen people like me on TV saying Pizzagate's a conspiracy theory. You don't believe it's a conspiracy theory?
No, it's definitely not. Pizza is a code word for child pornography. Cheese pizza, child pornography.
This is how my video started. The lady here has a belief. She holds the idea of Pizzagate as true. You are asking her if it is a conspiracy theory. When you ask this, she probably hears something like, "Do you think it is a ridiculously false idea?" And you're surprised that her answer is no? Instead, perhaps you should have asked her why she has this belief. She either has good reasons or not. If not, maybe we can lower her confidence level in this belief, or perhaps even change it completely. She does go on to... I really don't know what that was. Maybe it was an unsolicited attempt on her behalf to give reasoning. Cheese pizza, CP, child pornography. Well, then, Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, foreign-based insurgents. The idea that the FBI is made up of foreigners spying on America, planning to take it over. United States of America, USA, unabashed snails army. The idea that a bunch of nudist snails are going to take over American gardens. Laugh out loud. LOL. Lambs on lions. The notion that the submissive partner should be riding the horse, so to speak. Although fun, and I really want to continue, we should move on. The point is simple. If this is her best reason, it is ridiculous. If we can show her why, she may change her mind, although I doubt this is her only reason, if indeed it is one at all.
This stuff sticks in folks' minds, in part, I think, because of the negative partisanship of it, right? If defending children is wrong, then I don't want to be right.
No. I can see why you may think this, but no. People come to beliefs due to being convinced of them. By a number of means. Some good, some, well, cheese pizza. People defend their beliefs also by a number of means. Some good, some cheese pizza. These means are the important part. The part I keep talking about, and the part you're missing, Mr. Avlon. Methods. I could believe in Pizzagate because of cheese pizza. I could believe in Pizzagate because of flipping a coin. I could believe in Pizzagate because DeSantis or Fauci told me to. I could believe in Pizzagate because of faith. There are certainly many methods I could use to come to any conclusion. The simple question, Mr. Avlon, is this. Which are good methods and which are bad methods? This is why I keep talking about epistemology and philosophy in general. Look, I don't care if you know who Nietzsche, Plato, Kant, or even Bob Villa is. I don't give a flying elbow if you understand the hedonic calculus, nor the problem of heart solipsism, nor if you have any interest in the metaphysics of reality. I only want people to understand good methods of getting to high confidence levels in beliefs. It is when people use poor methods that they come to outlandish beliefs. If we could educate people on these methods, we could reduce the outlandish beliefs. When people hold less and less outlandish beliefs, we move closer and closer together. Or, if you prefer, our tribes merge.
But it really does create a quote-unquote logic for their abandonment of logic, doesn't it?
Please stop. Every time you use that word, you contribute to the ignorance of all that are listening. You've not investigated their logic at all. You've decided that their conclusion is illogical. But you've not investigated the reasoning. I will use your example to help you out here, Mr. Avlon. I disagree with my opponent's conclusion. I think I'm a logical person. Therefore, my opponent's position is illogical. This is called a non sequitur. It does not follow that because you disagree with someone and you think you are logical, that the other must be illogical. As this is a fallacy, sir, you are actually not using logic, or you are being illogical. Are you able to see that it is the reasons given which constitute logic or the lack thereof? It is not the conclusion, but the arguments which either do or do not follow, where logic lies or is absent.
What's interesting about that clip there, John, is the guy at the start, the guy with the makeup on his face. He was the organizer of this event, and he was trying to be coy, where he was saying, this is all about children. We're here to save the children. We have nothing to do with QAnon. And then, of course, we were able to catch him out by saying, well, actually, no, you're a QAnon guy. You were posting about this just yesterday.
Do you follow QAnon? The FBI says it's a dangerous conspiracy theory.
Do I follow? No, I don't follow QAnon. I follow the missing children. I have a child right now in Ohio that my team is saving. That's what I want to talk about, not a conspiracy.
You posted about QAnon yesterday, right? On your Instagram?
Claim, 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 claim. I've posted politically left-leaning articles, as well as right-leaning ones. So, which box would you like to put me in? Stop putting people in boxes! This is extremely immature, lazy, muddy thinking, which is not suitable for adults, especially those whose job it is to give information. If this guy thinks children are in danger, and he wants to help, him posting links from hospitals doesn't make him a doctor. Articles from the New Yorker doesn't make him on the left, and yes, links from QAnon groups doesn't make him a follower of QAnon. Is he? I have no idea. I hope not. But you claiming he is, and supporting that claim by mentioning, not showing, mentioning one post is doing exactly what you seem to be accusing him of, coming to beliefs due to bad reasoning. This is the problem. It is us. It's not the QAnon folks, and it's not the interviewers. It's all of us and our inability to use good methods to come to rational beliefs. Sure, QAnon people have seemingly come to crazy beliefs for bad reasons. But you, sir, have come to a belief as well, that this man is a QAnon supporter. And what was your single reason? He posted something that agreed with his beliefs, which happened to be from a QAnon group. He literally said, I don't follow QAnon. So, you've added yet another claim. You're also claiming he's a liar. And what is your evidence? One post that you have not shown, which you claim, comes from a QAnon source. This is truly sad. It might be more useful to listen to what he actually said and ask questions, rather than throwing him into one of your fool's box of fools.
And then you saw that lady there in the middle. I spoke to her at length. She doesn't give a damn about politics. She doesn't give a damn really about Democrats or Republicans. She just really, really cares about children. I actually spoke to her mom after that piece aired. And she was saying, my daughter used to babysit kids, just really has, a great love and affection in her heart for children.
Surprise! There exist good people who have ridiculous beliefs? This is precisely why we should criticize all beliefs, but not the people that hold them.
And she's an example, I think, of somebody who's been pulled into this, somebody who is seeing this messaging.
Everybody is pulled into this. Everybody is convinced into their beliefs. You've been convinced, she's been convinced, and I've been convinced into believing what we each believe. It's not a question of good people. It's a question of bad methods, like the one she has used, whatever they are, and like the ones you are using now.
To take that sincere love and translate it into a belief that pizza and cheese pizza are code words for molestation and abuse is a form of abuse itself against these people who buy into this BS and don't realize how deeply they're being used.
Yeah, I had forgotten how much I miss irony. Stay away from GQ. Stay away from GQ. Yes, I agree. It is a form of abuse to get people to believe things for bad reasons. It is an abuse to use people for your own gain. A step further, it is self-abuse to do these things to oneself. The problem here is that those being abused, in these cases, don't know they're being abused. And although the ones doing the abusing are sometimes aware of what they're doing, there are many, just like you, who are doing the abusing and are seemingly blissfully unaware of it. I can throw a link to abuse hotlines in the description if you want. You too may gain some value from them.
QAnon has moved beyond its sort of roots, quote unquote, as a sort of a LARP perhaps that was playing off hyper-partisan politics to become something like a belief system. And that's where it becomes even more insidious.
Look, I don't claim to be an expert on, well, anything. Certainly not QAnon. It seems to me, however, that although the members of QAnon seem to share some beliefs, those beliefs are not enough to form a belief system. For example, football players believe in exercise, health, competition, and perhaps camaraderie. But sharing these beliefs doesn't warrant a belief system. They are rather simply a group of shared beliefs. Belief systems are sets of principles or tenets which tell one how to live. Having said that, if your claim is that belief systems are generally bad, I completely agree.
And a recent study by the conservative-leaning American Enterprise Institute found that 27% of white evangelicals believed that Donald Trump was fighting a group of child sex traffickers. This is, of course, a core tenet of QAnon. But you've also interviewed influential pastors who are combating the rise of Q in their congregations.
I would expect they would, but what's the difference? Now, before anyone has a stroke, I don't mean the difference in their beliefs. Those differences certainly exist. No, I mean the difference in their methods. Assuredly, different religious folk have differing reasons for believing in their differing gods, but assuredly, different QAnon folk have different reasons for believing in their ideas, and you're saying there exists a large crossover? Well, strip me naked and call me wrinkled. Call the newspapers and round up the ignorant interviewers. This is the biggest piece of news since one of the Kardashians did something stupid. As far as I can tell, these groups have the exact same problems. They're making claims which the evidence does not justify. Or they're using bad methods to come to conclusions, which are therefore irrational. I fully admit that perhaps I have not heard or understood correctly some argument. Maybe there is a rational reason to come to these beliefs, but so far, I haven't heard it, and therefore, I don't see any meaningful distinction here. Bigfoot, flat earth, anti-vax, Nessie, alien abduction, superstition, homeopathy, what the hell's the difference? As far as I can see, and please correct me if I've missed some decent evidence, all of these are irrational beliefs. To be clear, I mean that all of these beliefs have come through poor methods of knowledge.
QAnon, these pastors say, has quite successfully sort of bastardized the story of Jesus Christ, or that fundamental story of good versus evil.
QAnon has bastardized the story of Jesus. It does seem like that. But while we're on the topic, which Christian sect has not bastardized the story? As they differ, at very most one of them is correct, and at worst, none are correct. So please, which story of Jesus has not been bastardized? And more importantly, why would you say the one you name is the correct one?
And Donnie, I think it's important to let the granddaughter of Billy Graham, the Reverend Billy Graham, have the last word, because real faith is very different than a conspiracy-driven belief system.
Why the hell would you give the last word to the daughter of Billy Graham? Yes, he was true to Scripture. I would love to go back into the evil crap that Scripture and Billy taught, but instead, let's hit, as you say, the real faith that is different from conspiracy-driven systems. First, the term faith has two distinct meanings. One, trust or confidence in something, and two, belief based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. Or, we could simplify. Number one, confidence. For example, I have faith that the sun will rise tomorrow, or I have confidence that the sun will rise tomorrow. Number two, a poor method. For example, I believe in Odin based on faith. Mr. Avlon is clearly using the second definition here. He's not saying the confidence is different. He's saying the method is different. Well, let's compare and contrast. I think we can agree, sir, that Q-Anon supporters have come to hold beliefs due to bad methods. This is most likely the case, assuming their beliefs are false. Now, a la Matt Dillahunty, is there any position one could not take simply on faith? Could I not say that purple people are better than pink people, or the opposite, and hold either position based on faith? Of course I could. One could take literally any position and then claim that that position is based on faith. Therefore, if I could hold one position, and you hold the opposite, and we both base our positions on faith, then it's obvious that faith is not a reliable method for coming to truth. It is rather like tossing a coin in that it can result in being correct, but can also result in being wrong. So, although different people come to believe different things for different reasons, in both the case of the QAnon supporters and those taking the real faith path, they're both using unreliable methods of discovering truth. In this way, they are identical.
If you're in that world, it's a nice, it can be a nice, warm place to be.
Nice. I wanted to end in agreement. There are lots of things I could believe that would result in a nice, warm, fuzzy place to be. I will see my dead relatives again. Ladies find me irresistible. Even young men go bald. And real men suck their thumbs while sleeping. There are lots of things I could believe that would make my daily life a nice warm place to be. But this is not the type of master self-stimulation that I am interested in. I want to believe true things. Also, I don't want to believe false things. You two are sitting here talking about the false beliefs of others while promoting your own false beliefs. Neither you twits nor the twits you're talking about seem to have a single notion of how to use decent methods to come closer to reality. You are literally the pot calling the kettle a buzzkill. Or something like that.
And she is a Christian. And we spoke soon after she sort of snapped out of it. But she was saying that there were times where she was thinking to herself, wow, am I putting Trump on a pedestal with Jesus Christ here? Am I putting him above God?
And you're doing the same thing. No, not putting Trump on a pedestal above God. You're putting God on a pedestal above reality. I think that we might be able to move in a positive direction if we stop putting anything on a pedestal above or even with reality.
Those are called moments of clarity, I believe.
Thanks. Told you I wanted to end with agreement.